If I can have your attention here in the deadline room, we'll go ahead and continue on with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availability. And we're joined by Brad Keselowski, driver of the number 2 Detroit Genuine Parts Ford for Team Penske. And Brad, you have such a cool program going on now with the Checkered Flag Foundation and the Veterans Day promotion. Could you walk us through that? I understand that fans can nominate folks from the military to appear on your car on Veterans Day weekend in Phoenix.
Well, first off, thanks for having me up here. When it comes to media availabilities, we try to maybe not do them every week, but when we have something a little bit more impactful to say, and of course, some of you might have seen the press release that came out. I won't take for granted that you did, but one of those things that we have going on this weekend here at Daytona is a chance to partner up with Chip Weil and the staff, and we're able to put together a nice ticket package for 200 some veterans to come to the racetrack, enjoy the race in the suite, and just enjoy a good time on behalf of our foundation, the Checkered Flag Foundation, which is a 501c3 that tries to give back to what I like to call our nation's heroes, but those who are willing to go out there and make some incredible sacrifices. So we're looking forward to that. NASCAR has deep roots with the military. A lot of the people that founded NASCAR as teams and even the sanctioning body itself came from a military background after World War II, and I think that connection still remains true to this day with a lot of the people in the garage that are veterans, and a lot of people, of course, that are still our fans are veterans. So it's nice to keep that natural connection going. Those programs, aren't cheap. They're expensive to do, but I'm glad to play a part in them. There's limitations to how much I can fund myself. So we have programs like you read on the press release that you'll see for Veterans Day that are coming up, where essentially we'll be able to nominate someone to go on a car, a serviceman, servicewoman, from the fans from the outside, and those proceeds will go directly to the foundation and directly to doing something else great along the way to be announced. So we're proud to play that part. It's a way for us not only to give back to the sport and its fans, but to give back to like I said, our nation's heroes, and show them a good time, show them our support, encouragement, and keep that connection going. So there are programs we're really proud of. We have a number of them, and we'll hopefully continue to do them for quite some time, as long as I'm able to do so. But the foundation makes that possible, and it's my way of spending some altruism back to the community. So we're very proud of that, and very much looking forward to this race weekend to be able to showcase that and hopefully get back to victory lane.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and open up the floor to questions. We'll start with Greg and go to Matt and then to Bob.
Brad, Greg Engelada Week. I've told you this before. I'll tell you again. As a veteran, thank you for what you do, because it's easy to pay lip service to a veterans group, but you really go out on a limb, and some of your programs are very worthwhile. You talk about a $100 donation for each, and that's tax deductible. Is there a way, because a lot of times, and maybe you don't know this or realize this, or maybe this is something you can talk about, we're different veterans. We have people that we know that maybe we served with, or we work in their honor and their memory. Is there something where, say, a veteran could work out something like that, where maybe the $100, we could do some kind of veterans nomination, something like that? Or and I know I'm throwing that on you, and you probably haven't had a chance to think about it, and I apologize for that. It was just a thought as I was reading the press release for the first time. And also, what can we expect in the future in terms of this kind of program? Is this something that's going to continue for next year, or is it a trial basis, or what?
Well, the nitty-gritty details of it are, essentially, and Suzanne Boyd, who runs the foundation, is actually sitting right behind you, so she can help connect you with all the specifics. But, the point of it is to be able to nominate a hero and to get their name and likeness on the car, to be able to celebrate them. So, yes, that's kind of the ability of the program. And you don't have to be a veteran to do so. You can know someone, or just you don't even have to know someone. Think a lot of someone and post it on there. So that's what's great about it. And as far as the future of the programs, I really think of foundations as really doing three things. And one is, of course, to fundraise for programs that do actionable items. The second is to be a program that does actionable items. And the third is to draw awareness to, which it can be through lobbying or awareness programs. And our foundation tries to do all three of those. Sometimes we do the programs directly. Other times we just simply fund them. I think all three are rewarding, and I have a tremendous privilege to make a difference with the position that I have. So I would look for us to be a part of all three of those different ways that I see foundations playing a role in helping. The key thing is that our group is a 501c3, which you throw that out there and that doesn't really mean much until it gets an explanation, but a 501c3 basically means that you're accredited within the government and the IRS, and there's some levels of accountability that you have to be held to make sure that those finances and those actions that you take hold up to the highest of standards. So being able to pass those tests and stay active with that is a very important quality of a foundation, and one that we take great pride in. So I would say that to name specifics is maybe a little bit something we try to stay away from, because we try to be flexible and try to hit causes as they come up and opportunities as they come up. But we do have a few main causes that we're working with right now, and one of them is specific to my home state in Michigan, and the hopes of helping them fund a Fisher House, which is essentially a facility for wounded veterans and their families to stay while they're recovering in hospitals. And that's one that we really enjoy being a part of. For those that are in Dover, we announced we're going to help Camp Rockfish, which is on the coast of Carolina, to help families heal together that have come back and are dealing with either mental or physical ailments and need the chance to bond together. So those are two such programs that we have going on, but we like to leapfrog and pick different programs based on opportunities that might come up, and we're glad to play a part. No problem. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate your service.
We'll go to Matt, then to Bob, then to Ben.
Matt Weaver, Auto Week. How important has your truck team been in the negotiation process as you look towards free agency and what you're doing? Like finding resources.
Yeah. Hold on, I got my brains just went from way over here to way over there. It's getting a little slower. It has to shift a gear. You know, how important? Well, first off, my truck team is very important to me. It's an opportunity to give back in another world, which is the one that's provided me the opportunity to do so many other things. And it's always going to be an important topic to me. It's one that has been very important through the last few years of my life, and you know, whatever contracts end up being settled on it will be a significant role in it.
And is part of that like a possible interest in Xfinity too for the team?
You know, I got a lot of interest, but I don't want to pigeonhole into any of them right now at the moment. Thank you.
Go next to Bob.
Bob Huckers, ESPN, at the kind of the annual summer meeting between NASCAR and drivers. Did you hear anything that you particularly liked or disliked?
I wouldn't say that, you know, in our meetings this morning that we have, that there was anything that really caught me off guard either way. There's always things that you smile and you're happy to see. There's always things you go, oh, we need to work on that. Today was no different. I can't say there's anything that came out of it that anyone here would, even if you sat in it, would find all too shocking or unbelievable. So there's a lot of just small tweaks that we're always working on with respect to formats and new ideas of how to make the sport better. And it's more or less, in my mind at least, an environment of collaboration to be able to kind of work through those different things and throw ideas out to NASCAR, and vice versa for NASCAR to throw ideas out to us. So I think it was a good process for that, and one that hopefully we can continue to expand on, because this sport, at least in my mind, is so big, and it's bigger than one person's ability to be able to govern it, to manage it. And we all see it through different lenses, and the best perspective is when we can get all those lenses together. And those types of meetings, those council meetings or whatever you want to label them, are very, very productive for being able to do just that. So I'm glad just to play a part of it. I'm glad they exist.
Go next to Ben, then to Matt, then to Chris.
Ben White, Lexington Dispatch. Brad, as far as I'm going to ask you to switch gears one more time for me here. Talk about Bristol Motor Speedway at the night race. Why is it that we see people throwing helmets and throwing gloves and spinning people. What is it about Bristol that makes all that come about?
Something about Bristol, specifically the night race, it's almost a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy with respect to it gets so much hype, that race does, that I think the drivers themselves kind of get caught up in the hype of the Bristol night race. I know I did when I won there. It felt like a bigger win to me because of the hype that you get out of that race. And so as goes the good times, so goes the bad times, where the bad times seem to hurt a little bit more and you get a little more frustrated by it. That short track environment is more prevalent to see those type of incidents that make you mad, make you upset. And with an environment that feels electric, I think sometimes we just feed into it.
Go to Matt, then to Chris, then to Brad. For Brad.
Matt Corson with the RacingExperts.com. Being the defending race winner, how much more weight does this race carry for you and your team? And also, you led 31 laps at Talladega. Did your team bring the same car here?
Well, Matt, I would say this is a good race for us. It's one that we're looking for big results from for sure because of the success we had. I don't believe we brought the same car from Talladega, but don't hold me to that. I'm not great with that stuff. I kind of learned to not love race cars a few years ago when we won at a racetrack, and the car didn't have a scratch on it, and I saw it in the back junkyard cut up into pieces, and I wanted to cry. So from those days forward, I stopped reading the numbers and stopped giving them names. So I couldn't even answer what car it is, but I know it's the best car that the team feels like they could find or put together for this race. I know it's seen some. I know our group has made some improvements since then to hopefully make us even a little bit stronger. And I know we had a really strong practice session. So we are looking for big results. We came off of what I would call our worst track last weekend with a very solid finish. But then quite honestly, the few weeks before that were pretty lackluster, if not dismal, with wrecking out at Charlotte and Dover and not really getting the run that we wanted at Michigan. So we kind of have a little bit of the ups and downs right now and hoping to kind of create a wave of momentum with the ups coming off of a strong run at Sonoma and a track or entering a track that we won last year. And I feel like we're going to have a really, really strong race car to race with here come tomorrow. So I would say we're expecting big things tomorrow night.
Go next to Chris, then to Brad.
Chris Knight, CatchFence.com. Hey, Brad. I was curious if you thought that with the tweaking, if any tweaks were to be made with the stages next year, that if we didn't count caution laps, if you thought that would be, if we didn't count caution laps, that would be a good thing.
I don't have a real strong opinion. There's been a lot of dialogue about with the stages if caution laps should count, shouldn't count, if we should go to yellow or not go to yellow and so forth. I don't think that's going to make a big difference either way. It's something kind of, everybody wants to talk about, but the teams are pretty adamant that they want to see the laps count because they're putting miles on the engines and so forth, that they don't want that to not count for something. And I think NASCAR is pretty adamant that they want them to count because otherwise the teams would, run the cars out of gas purposely on the last lap, and so they don't have to pace around and waste that energy. And it would really throw a wrench in the whole strategy game. So, and I think the fans would probably ultimately lose. But I'm fairly open-minded to the topic of laps and stages and all that. And honestly, I don't think it'll make much of a difference to the overall experience when it's all said and done. But I'm respectful that some do.
Go next to Brad, and then the gentleman in the back.
Brad Norman with NASCAR.com. Brad, Dale was in earlier and is obviously really highly regarded as a plate racer, and he mentioned you and Joey and Denny as also being very good on plate tracks. Are there any commonalities between the four of you at places like this, or what is it that makes a great plate racer a great plate racer?
Well, that's kind of like asking me to give you my bank account number. Well, I'm just saying, plate racing is its own breed. And some of you have heard me say this before and some of you have not, but what makes being a successful NASCAR race car driver so difficult and so significant to me is if you compare it to other sports, it would be like if you took a star athlete like a Tom Brady and you told him, hey, you're a great quarterback, but this week you're going to line up at tight end, and next week you're going to line up at wide receiver, and the week after that you're going to line up as a safety. It's 4 different positions, right? And he might fit great as a quarterback, but I think probably he himself would admit that he doesn't line up great at any of those other 3 positions. Well, in NASCAR, even though it's the same field, much like it would be in football if Tom Brady lined up in any one of those other positions, the game changes dramatically when you go to different genres of racetracks, from the restrictor plate tracks to road course tracks to short tracks to the intermediate tracks. And the techniques, the styles, what you look for, everything is just so much different that even though it's still a race, everything is foreign to you if you're an expert in one field and you go to another track. That's why we see road course ringers at road courses, because that's to the extreme of how foreign a race can get. And so the adaptability is key. And to me, restrictor plate tracks, with the way they are, you can't really get any experience at them, not any real meaningful experience, because even in practice, the dynamics of how the pack works is not even close to realistic to what you're going to experience in the race. And you can fool around with it on computer simulations. The computer simulations are miles off of being able to replicate how all the air is flowing over the cars and exactly what's happening out there on the racetrack. So quite honestly, you have to literally just learn from experience, through mistakes, through film review, and through self-teaching. And some people adapt to that very well, and some don't. Some are just naturally talented at things. I don't think you can be naturally talented at plate racing. I think you have to learn it. I think you have to fail at it and apply the lessons. And some have done that better than others through the years. And that's generally what tends to separate us. And it's, of course, the car side is very important as well. But you do see some of the same drivers repeating success, maybe not each and every time, but the majority of such times. And I would expect that to continue. Brad.
Hey, Brad. Alan Slaughterzinski with Space Coast Daily. When we were here in February, we didn't know what kind of an impact stage racing would have. Now that we're back here to Daytona again, you got a couple of stage wins yourself. How would you assess stage racing? What impact has it had this year?
Well, I like it, and that's a bit self-serving because I've had some success at it. But I think overall, it's good for the sport. There are some people that don't like it. I understand the nostalgia and so forth, but I strongly believe that if this sport was created in 2017, that this is exactly the type of racing we would have with today's society, today's expectations of experience. I believe that you would have seen last week and this week, without stage races, certain teams that realize that these weeks aren't to their strengths and that effectively took the race off and just rode around. I don't think that's healthy for our fans. I don't think that's healthy for our sport. And so with that stage racing format, I believe the dynamics have changed. There's more emphasis every week. There's more value to the ticket that a fan purchases or the time that a fan spends watching the races. And I think anytime we can increase the value to the fan without, increasing costs, it's a good thing for the sport. I think stage racing has done that. So I'm a big fan of it.
We'll go to George and wrap up with Kelly.
Yeah, Brad, back here, George to your left.
I see
there.
George.
George Diaz with the.
You used to be way up here, didn't you?
No, Matt Humphrey demoted me to the back.
We've
I'm sorry.
relegated him to the rear.
Yeah.
Moving on back.
It happens. I'm waiting for the draft.
See, stage racing hasn't kicked in the media center yet.
Well, we're starting a trend here. Anyway, we digress. You're obviously a bit of a historian of the sport. What comes to mind with Richard Petty and the legacy he's left behind with NASCAR?
Well, you don't get the nickname the King for nothing. That's probably the first thing I would say to that. He's leaving because every day he's still active in the sport, which is pretty amazing in itself. That's another story. He's leaving a legacy that, will never even come close to being touched by any other, driver, maybe even athlete in the sports world. I would put him on par with the Arnold Palmers and the Jack Nicklaus and all those guys. What they've meant to golf, I can't think of anyone in football or hockey or maybe a Gordie Howe, but he's still here. He's still in the garage every day. I mean, he's been retired for 25 years, and he's still in the garage every race week. He still has a team that he actively participates in. He's still invested in the sport. He's, you still see him promoting the sport with different things, whether it be when NASCAR goes to the White House or trips to New York or any of those things. He's active with the Hall of Fame. 25 years later, I don't know where I'm going to be when I retire. I hope it's a long ways off, but I doubt I will still be here every week. And let alone from all the success he's had on the racetrack. There's just so many facets to his legacy that, I feel bad even kind of sitting up here trying to talk about it because I know I'm missing so many pieces because of everything he's meant to the sport and will continue to mean. And we're lucky that he's in our sport and not in another sport.
Kelly?
And he just walked in. That was good timing.
As if on cue.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Brad, you and Joey have been very good at the plate tracks. You add in Kurt's win in the 500, Ricky's win at Talladega, and Ford has now won 5 of the last plate races. So is Ford as a manufacturer suddenly the cars to beat at the plate tracks? Because it certainly seems to have swung in that direction.
Yeah, I think, every year we seem to see where different cars, different teams, and sometimes manufacturers have strengths and weaknesses. I think we're starting to see at this point in time in this season where the Fords have some distinct strengths and weaknesses, probably more so than what we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years in the manufacturers. I think the Fords right now are the best cars on the speedway tracks for a number of reasons, one of which is the power in their engine is very strong at the higher RPMs. And with the current gear rules and current engine packages, Kelly, at Daytona and Talladega, the engines sustain high RPM for the duration of running in the pack. I think the Ford engine is probably a ways behind at the lower RPM to the other manufacturers, which tends to show itself at the short tracks. And even some of the road courses. So it's a bit of a testament for Kevin's success last week and for ours at Martinsville. But I think it definitely shows up at the tracks like Loudon, Phoenix, and so forth, where the Fords might be ahead at the restrictor plate tracks. They're far behind at the lower RPM tracks. And I think with the bodies, the Ford body on the Gen 6 car lends itself very well to the restrictor plate tracks with having high efficiencies with respect to its drag characteristics. But then again, on the mile and a half tracks, I think it's probably behind the competition with respect to balance, and we're fighting that right now. So there's certainly some strengths and weaknesses. I would agree that the Fords have some strengths right now on the restrictor plate tracks and are probably behind on the other racetracks. So, you kind of, like anything, if your golf game is good on the greens and not good on the driving range, you got to make the putts. And so the Fords are doing a good job at that. I would like to see it maybe be a little bit more balanced out with our strengths and weaknesses, but with the current landscape, that's where it is right now, and I think that is can attest to your stat there, which is exactly how I feel about it.
Brad, thanks for taking the time to join us today. Maybe stop over there at the King and give you an autograph on the way out the door.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.